I think we have about 25 odd minutes for this discussion. Firstly, I would like to thank all my fellow panelists for joining me here today in discussing something that's vital and equally important. I'll start off by setting some context, and then we'll move around the table on the particular topic. So the World Bank Global Findex Database 2021 reports a gender gap of 6% in account ownership across developing economies. While it is encouraging to see the gender gap fall from 9% over the last decade, women still constitute a significant proportion of the unbanked population in low and lower middle class income countries. The cross-cutting issue of gender and women's economic empowerment along with DPI has been considered a vital theme of the India 2023 G20 presidency. Many women face a number of challenges in terms of lack of formal identification, lower income, digital finance capability, limited access to smartphones, mobile networks, formal credit streams, and socio-cultural issues impacting their path to economic empowerment. The onus of addressing these challenges, of course, lies on various stakeholders present here, including the government, regulators, financial service providers, civil society, and others. All can play a powerful role in prioritizing DPI and technological innovation that can level the playing field. With that, let's start by setting context around the table on the role of DPIs. If you all can take a minute in introducing yourself and setting context on how DPI can looked at for a level playing field. We can start with Preeti.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Can all of you hear me? Clearly? Okay, fabulous. Firstly, thank you so much for joining this event. It's lovely to see when you have a house full for something as important as inclusion of women and gender equity in the world. And it's also good to see that there are many women in the audience. So big applause for the women who are here. It's also very lovely to see that in the panelists, I think the majority, as we can clearly see, is women. It just feels that the face of India is changing, and it's lovely to see that. My name is Preeti Khattri. I am a part of Accenture, and we truly drive from bottoms up and from top down inclusion and equitable workplace as a core focus area. I currently lead communications as part of strategy and consulting, but what's core to me is CSR. I drive Give Back, which is supporting, again, both from an education, from empowering children, underprivileged, as well as women and people with disability as part of our overall agenda, and that's very close to my heart. And also we help with carbon savings, since we really need a future if we need women or anybody to have a place in society. Really excited to be here. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. Thank you to Nasscom Foundation as well for hosting this very important topic. So my name is Emma Stanton, and I'm with the Mastercard Center for Inclusive Growth. We are the company's global philanthropic hub. And in India, we focus on investing in gender-intentional programming to help women-led small businesses grow and become more financially resilient. And I think when we think about DPIs, we know that they can really deliver on the promise of unlocking growth, boosting productivity, and improving the quality of people's lives. But it's really important that we're doing that, that we're building this infrastructure and building transformative tech in such a way that is responsible and trust-based. And I think when we're thinking about women and other underserved populations, it's also important that we're thinking about the role of technology in terms of improving access and affordability. So of course, when we think about DPIs and we think about the really impressive story of India in terms of financial inclusion, the JAM Trinity stands out as something that's really helped exponentially grow financial inclusion, more than doubling it in like a 7-year period, which would have normally taken around 50 years to achieve. And women rose with this. But again, at the core of this needs to be trust. Because for women in particular, trust in technology is key to adoption and use.
Hi, I'm thankful to Nasscom Foundation to giving me an opportunity to share my experiences. And I'm a founder of Mandeshi Mahila Cooperative Bank, which operates in Maharashtra, and a founder of Mandeshi Foundation. I'm very proud to share that this year we will be impacting 1 million women entrepreneurs. And actually, while I'm saying that, I would just like to say that there are so many lessons I have learned from these women. I would just very briefly share one of the narrative of a story which, like, you know, how impactful or how DPIs can empower these women is that Kalpana, she never thought she would start a business. But her husband was doing a business, got into debt, and she got the responsibility to run the house. She decided to start a business of making oil, peanut oil, to sell it, cold press oil. So which means so many things. I'm not going to talk about it now. But she bought a machinery to make the oil, packaging, branding, and now she's selling her product online. And I'm so proud that today, while I'm here in a panel, we have with Mandeshi the partners Accenture, Mastercard, ONDC. So at a grassroots level, if one woman decides, in her generation nobody has been owner of the business, a business leader, women owning a manufacturing unit. So today Kalpana is owning a manufacturing unit of oil. She has a linkage with bank. She has her own brand. And I stop here, Varun, and I would like talk about it in detail when I narrate this story. And she's owning the brand, and she has sold her oil more than, like, those product online more than 1 million rupees, 10 lakh rupees in a very few months. But what I'm trying to say is that journey, which sounds so interesting, has so many challenges. So we'll discuss those in later.
Thank you
so
Chetna
much.
Vibhor.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Vibhor. I drive governance and policy function at ONDC. I think just building upon what Chetna ma'am said, you know, giving Kalpana the access to market, giving Kalpana choices in terms of being able to be discoverable online, giving Kalpana or helping her reduce the cost of business, helping Kalpana in ease of doing business is what ONDC enables, right? So thank you for setting that foundation, Chetna ma'am. I think those are the 4 pillars in terms of what ONDC is trying to achieve. Giving every participant in the market a level playing field, whether you're small, medium, big, doesn't make a difference. But it's about, think of it as creating those highways which anyone can use. There could be small vehicles running on those highways. There could be large vehicles running on those highways. So ONDC in that context is basically an infrastructure which enables everyone to do commerce. And I think we'll talk about it at length in the panel. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Cool. I think we can now dive deep into the conversation. India is considered to be a country that has one of the most advanced DPI systems in the world. So I would like to understand the lay of the land. What is the current landscape when it comes to access of DPI to other genders, especially women? And Chetna ji, I'll come to you with this question. Your work exposes you, like you mentioned, to a lot of on-ground realities. What do you think is the current landscape for women right now? And how can we use the power of technology and DPIs to bridge the gender gap and foster inclusive growth?
Thank you. You know what happens, like, if you see in India, you have a very, like, 2 worlds. World for women and world for men, I would say. When I talk about these 2 worlds, what does world for women say? Number 1, if she wants to start a business from her house, everybody will say, it's impossible. You won't be able to do it. And she would continuously say that I want to do it and I'll prove. Then she goes to the bank, and the banks will say, no collateral, no loans, we cannot give you access to capital. Then she goes to the market, and the market is, like, so different that she's lost. What would I do? I mean, how can I show my product? How can I find the client? So that is one world. And the other world And then she goes to the bank. Bank will also say no collateral, no credit score, right? No digital trajectory, nothing. And the other world is where everything is available. I have a CIBIL rating tool. I have my CIBIL score. The men would start the business. I have a collateral to give you. My business plan is this. My action plan is this. And that's how my business will go. So when women are in that situation, how do we create and support them? And I do think that, as you mentioned about the digital platform, that now this is a good, very important opportunity for women to come on this platform. And then I would just again say that today Vibhor Jain is here from ONDC. It is so proud that to share with you that when they get an opportunity, what happens. And when she goes to the bank, any business women are doing, the number one that you cannot do it, she is ready to run her business and become a manufacturer, use the machinery. With her digital transaction, she can show her trajectory of the financial transaction. She is de-risking the lender. She is helping the bank to achieve the priority sector lending, because otherwise how would they achieve? For small loans they can. So, and again at the same time, as Vibhor mentioned, that these women who are doing business, Nike is doing business on Amazon, right? But I would say that Kalpana is also doing the business on digital platform. And so it's such a big achievement for these women that yes, not only they are dreaming, but they are creating a path and they are becoming a role models for millions of women. And I would like to end with saying 2-3 things, that what are the challenges there which we need to address. Number one, logistics. How do India is fragmented. We very proudly say that Bharat stays in the villages, but then how do we bring the product of Bharat to the big metro city? At present, what is happening? I get Nike shoe in my village. I get a brand product in my village. But how many things which are going from village to the metro city? So I think that is the roadmap where these DPIs can create, and with the partners like Accenture and Mastercard and ONDC, what I am trying to say is that philanthropic capital and private capital, if they come together, then these infrastructures can be addressed, which at the grassroots, our women entrepreneurs or a community organization alone we cannot.
Absolutely. No, thank you for that, Chetna ji. Preeti, I'd come to you with the same questions on how can we use the power of technology and DPIs to bridge the gender gap and to foster inclusive growth.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you, Chetna ji. It's really lovely to always hear you speak. I think the problem starts at multiple levels, and just to simplify it, I'll just say by asking a simple question: how does a girl child who's born in a village dream to even have a future outside of just getting married and managing a household? I think the problem starts from there, and DPI plays a very, very important aspect. How? Because of Jan Dhan Yojana, Aadhaar, the digital infrastructure, we have been able to get the younger ones in villages to be able to read, find information. That's the starting point. But then, now once this girl, and let's say the girl's name is Kalpana only, Kalpana is born and she understands that. The next step is, how does Kalpana get educated? So yes, she needs access, which the government provides. But nevertheless, along with that, how do financial institutions, the entire ecosystem of companies like Accenture being one of them, participate in this journey? The hand-holding can't start from the moment Kalpana decides, I'm going to produce peanut oil. The journey starts from Kalpana being born, going to the school, getting educated, and somebody like an Accenture or a Mastercard participating in the journey and saying, yes, I will provide you digi classes. So that's something that Accenture's done. And I think other companies are also doing, and if more do, it will really help. We provide access to a child sitting anywhere in the country remotely through the mobile platform. And we've been able to educate and provide entrepreneurship skills, which comes much later, to about 4.3 million entrepreneurs worldwide. I think it's a proud moment for Accenture. But how did this happen? So then we provide digi classes. They get basic trainings on, okay, how do I build my confidence besides learning maths? If I don't know maths, my father will not teach me maths. Who can help me, guide me, so that I can pass my test? How do I not somehow get disheartened, demotivated to drop off the school system because it's so much easier, and then, you know, kind of follow the norm as my mother has, or my aunt has, or everybody does. That's where we support. Then the next round is when the women are at the key juncture of their life, when they want to graduate. And that's where the pressure is, get married, you know, you don't need to be a part of the system, you know, this is what life is. This is where, again, Accenture supports, and we have a program called Unnati Mentorship. And what we do is, as women leaders, we pledge to drive this support system for all the women across, and we have partnered with NGOs like Mann, Deshi, and many others, where we say, okay, so instead of just getting married, if you dream of, and you can produce peanut oil, then we will support you with basic skills. One, how do you even go about your business? Now, that's a skill that, you know, is difficult for us, it's difficult for them. So we guide them on how they can start their business, how they can, you know, also learn skills of how do you sell online, so pitching online, and so on and so forth. And that's where we have built a system called We Act. We Act is a platform, it's a very unassuming platform that's easy to access by these women, where they can access the skills, they can also find other partners and the whole ecosystem to get them jump started, and then also track their progress. Something that we do for business, why can't we do it for them? And then when they see the profits come in, it inspires them. When you see 100 rupees extra come in your pocket, you feel, yeah, I think I can do this. And taking them through that entire journey till the last mile, that I think is really a true change in India, supporting the women from the birth and making Kalpana's Kalpana a reality. And that's the part companies can play, and I think Accenture is also doing, Mastercard is doing. And my request to the audience is, some of you should also, if you're from different companies, also look at it and try and do something similar, or maybe different, but through the entire life cycle of Kalpana.
Got it. No, thank you. I think access, and a point that I took away from what you were saying, Preeti, was that access plays a huge role in, you know, curbing the gender gap. Which brings me to my next question to you, Emma. Can you share examples of how Mastercard's Center for Inclusive Growth uses DPIs in South Asia, particularly to impact gender narratives positively?
Yeah, of course, and thank you, Varun, for teeing me up so nicely with the point around access. And I loved how Vibhor, you know, so eloquently described them as highways. DPIs are highways. It's exactly that. What DPIs do is they build the foundation and they unlock access, right? And I think what this allows the ecosystem to do is other sectors, the social sector, the private sector, they can really lean in to what they do best. So in laying the foundation of access, now the private sector can come in and innovate, right? Yeah. And they can innovate in order to reduce affordability barriers. They can innovate to move beyond the question of just access and start to think about engagement and usage, right? And we know our global evidence base tells us that in the case of financial inclusion, for example, evolving from a question of access to a question of engagement and usage is when we start to see a shift towards financial security and financial health. And when we think about women entrepreneurs in particular, financial security, financial health, and things like market access, what that allows them to do is weather economic shocks and become more resilient. And that's what's ultimately going to unlock their next stage of growth, allow them to feed their families, invest in their families' future, et cetera. So that's what I think we see as the power of digital public infrastructure. And then you layer on top of that the role of the social sector, and what they can lean into once you lay the groundwork of access is really they're knowing their communities and forging trust in the digital infrastructure, forging trust in the technology. So I think that's the beauty of a DPI. It just allows all of the actors in the ecosystem to do what they do best and collaborate together. And I think we're talking about the SDGs, SDG 17 and around partnerships, like that's what it's all about. And I think DPIs have just brought that, have just made that so much more powerful in its mission. And so when I think about examples, I think I'd be remiss not to cite the example that brings together a few of the panelists here today, and that's the Center for Inclusive Growth's partnership with Mann Deshi Foundation. We've collaborated to scale the Rural Women Chamber of Commerce, which is a wonderful model that connects grassroots women entrepreneurs to business support services, to peer networks, and a big part of that is access to markets. And so what we've done is partner with ONDC to help 73 of our women entrepreneurs actually start selling their products on ONDC. And I think, when we've together impacted 30,000 women, Chetna ji, but and so to think 73, that seems like a small number. The exciting thing about that is it's only been a couple months, and we've seen 73 women get onto ONDC. So there's a nugget there, and there's something I think we're keen to continue to explore. And what it's done is reduce the barriers for them to leverage technology to access markets. And it's powerful because it results in the growth of their business, and that results in more income for them and their families.
No, thank you for that. Which brings me to my next question, Vibhor, to you is, what are the challenges in deploying DPIs for gender transformative purposes, and how does ONDC particularly address them?
Sure. So I think the good news is that technology does not differentiate between the genders, right? So that's the best part of it, and therefore when you're building those digital highways, there are different set of challenges that you typically face, right? And I think let's talk about some of those challenges. Some interesting facts. Today, 90% of content that gets consumed in India is in vernacular languages. Less than 10% of commerce happens in vernacular language, which means more than 90% of commerce happens in English today. To me, that's one of the biggest barriers which we are trying to unlock. To say, how can commerce move to vernacular languages, right? And when you have the likes of Kalpana and many others across the country coming on the network, how do you solve for them? And I think the good news is technology today can solve for that, right? I think that's one thing that we're enabling. The second piece is, when you get Kalpanas on the network, how do you skill them adequately? How do you empower them adequately to learn new skills to be able to transact online? I may have a great product, right? How do I catalog it? How do I ensure that the inventory is updated, right? Those are very basic skills. I think as part of the initial pilot, which everyone is referring to, we had simple challenge to say, okay, I don't have a printer at home to print a address labeling slip. How do I take care of those? So while the highways are there, do I have the right vehicles? Do I have the right driving skills? Do I understand the signages on the highways to be able to drive on those highways? I think that's the larger challenge that we're solving for. The third issue that we're solving for is, how do we build trust on those digital highways, right? I receive an order, I ship a product. Will I get my payment on time, right? Who will pay me? Whom do I go to in case there is a grievance that I have, right? In a faceless environment where you have digital rails, I think that's a very big issue to be solved for in terms of how do you build trust on the network like ONDC, right? And these may sound very trivial issues, but when you think of that Kalpana who is sort of completely relying on those payments to come in at the end of the month to sort of fuel her house and the expenses she needs to have, unless that's solved for, you cannot really scale the network and really be inclusive in terms of getting the marginalized onto the network. So these are some of the initial challenges we're solving for. Obviously, it's day zero for us because when you're designing for internet scale and when you're designing for something where every product or service can be transacted on a network like ONDC, it will take time for it to evolve. But yes, I think thanks to the partnerships that we have with all the people sitting on the dais here, I think we need those sort of evangelists in terms of taking it to the market, and people who believe that technology is the solution and those information highways will solve for some of these issues that I spoke about.
Got it. No, thanks. Thanks, Vibhor. I'm being told that we're short on time, even though we've just started. But so one last question to all my panelists as to what are the urgent actions which are needed to make sure the efforts to build DPIs are sustainable from a gender lens. And we'll go across the dais. And then I have one more question for sure. Please, Preeti, yeah.
Okay. I think I will give just one, to just cut the story short. One word, pledge. Start with a commitment. A commitment is a target and a number. Take a number, work backwards. If we do that, a systemic change does happen. And I'm so proud to say Accenture is one of the examples. We pledged, I don't know how many years ago, but we pledged our leadership, and that time the CEO was a male. I think it was Pierre Nantham, and he pledged and he said by 2025 it will be 50-50 as gender in Accenture. And it seemed like a tall ask. And we are on that goal, and I have seen that systemic change, and I am one of the systemic change because I'm here speaking as a woman leader, and I do not know if many years ago that was possible. So that's a systemic change. The second is we have taken a pledge, and therefore we have been able to provide 4.3 million people support in entrepreneurship or in education worldwide. That's again a goal that was taken up, and then we're working towards it. So anyone sitting here, take a pledge, and at an individual level, it starts with one, it could be a small pledge. So within my strategy and consulting practice where I lead CSR, we've taken a pledge to support 75 underprivileged, primarily women, from colleges as well as from NGOs, as well as the people with disability, to get them education or transform their life. Get them educated or get them a job in Accenture or with our partners like Mastercard and others, or along with that also get them to start their own small business. That's a pledge. That's it. One word, pledge.
Thank you, Emma.
Great. So yeah, I think we have a tremendous opportunity to coordinate and collaborate across ecosystem strengthening, across product development and inclusive design and innovation, and of course in establishing standards and inclusive policies around digital infrastructure and transformative tech. So I think there's an urgent call to action around that. And what we know is that in order for these technologies, whether they be public infrastructure, private infrastructure, to deliver, people have to trust, right? And so I keep talking about trust. Vibhor brought it up, which I loved. I know for Chetna ji, trust is so integral to her model on the ground as well. And I think it's important that we continue to talk about that. So yeah, I think the urgent call to action is for us all to come together to think about the robust governance, the cybersecurity, the privacy principles we need to underpin digital infrastructure in order to make women entrepreneurs and other underserved communities really trust that it's going to deliver.
Amazing, amazing. Chetna ji?
So I would say that, first thing which needs to be, Vibhor is very humble in saying about this creating roadmap and highways and all that. But I do know that when ONDC, Deshi onboarded with ONDC, their whole team came to a village and then the work started. What I mean to say is here that the first thing we'll have to do is go to the people. That is one. Second, which you mentioned, right, that 10% of the people do e-commerce and 90% in vernacular, but 90% it is in English. Whereas opposite is 90% people are using vernacular language while using the digitalization. What does it say? Failure on supply side, right? The people, those who, or the sector who thinks like we are doing everything, bankers. So who needs to be taught? People or the supply side? Like bankers, policymakers, all those. So I think that is another which we need to learn, because here, and then the third, which I really liked, Emma, you talked about access, and I see that, when what happens when people get access? They get control and they generate wealth. I think that is very important, right? When you are saying like how Accenture does, what is it when we address people? People generate wealth, and that wealth actually, when we talk about economy, GDP and growth and everything. But if women at the grassroots in the villages, if they get an opportunity, that would be the real growth I see. And I would just like here to say and share that when the whole supply side, either it is banker or it is people, those who are in market and those who are market savvy, if they are able to create the brand owners in the villages, like, Emma, as we say that our next thing is like with Accenture and Mastercard, what is our next mission after impacting 1 million women entrepreneurs is to create the 5,000 brand owners who are rural women. And that would be the proud, not for those women only, but proud for our country also, right? That we have maximum brand owners on the digital platform which are owned by our women. So I see that there is so much of opportunity, but at the same time, I would just say that we will have to keep our eyes and ear open to listen the wisdom of the people. And one thing which I always share, that what I learned from people, and that is never give poor solutions to poor people. They are smart. Our women don't go to high school, but they are smart on digital platform. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Chetna ji. Vibhor, lastly.
I think what we need is community builders and community contributors, right? We can build those highways, but again, unless you get people to drive on those highways, nothing is going to change. What you see on this side, right? None of us sitting on this side are the end sellers on the network, right? We are basically community builders and community enablers. We need more of those partners from the audience to say, okay, how are we going to help build larger communities and enable those communities to be on the network? I think that's what would sort of drive the next wave of evolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I just have one last point, and even at Josh Talks, we believe that change cannot be brought alone. So after listening to the collaboration between, of course, Mastercard, Deshi, and ONDC, I want to understand or ask my panelists here today if there is any commitment that you guys are willing to take today, and that could be a takeaway for our audience. Anything that you would like to say?
Please go first. So we've already taken a commitment. I think that was the whole point. We are driving 4.3 million entrepreneurs and folks to get educated and become a part of the system. That's a pledge that's taken.
Amazing.
Individually, what that has done is we have individually at leadership level also taken pledges, like I've taken for 75 women and people with disability, to get them empowered and transform their lives and get them included into society with a financial independence. So that's my level. I think it runs at both, and that's my pledge. I think what I've discovered today is that I can partner more at a personal as well as at Accenture level with folks who are here as well as some of you here to form a bigger community, like Vibhor said. So
Right.
a mini community within a larger community,
Right.
because the mini communities drive the larger community as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can commit to having more conversations with my fellow panelists, because I think we've got some, like I called them earlier, nuggets, some insights around what works for women entrepreneurs that I think are definitely worth digging into a little bit further.
Like I said, right, that 5,000 brand owners in 1 year. And the second, I would just say that instead of like me sitting here, there should be those women sitting here and business leaders sitting here and talking in their vernacular language, but there will be translator in English. Yeah.
Thank you.
As I said, technology has no barrier, and if we can get more undigitized entrepreneurs, the women entrepreneurs, the self-employed entrepreneurs onto the network, I think that would really lead to a gender transformative narrative, right, from a larger economic and social impact standpoint. So yeah, that's what we're working towards, and I think that's what we intend to enable.
Great. Thank you so much. With this, we come to the end.